So, Spider-Man Brand New Day came out and lots of discourse has taken place. Many people have talked about the plot problems in the movie, and it led into lots of discussion on how much the movie makes sense. I saw a video from Screen Crush trying to address these plot holes and come up with explanations. Now I'm gonna skip anything I agree with since there wouldn't be anything to respond to, and he does make some good points. But I think many of these defenses aren't satisfying enough for Brand New Day's plot to make sense. Though, I do appreciate that the creator is trying to dig into the details and make sense of what he can. As always, don't harass anyone that I'm responding to. We're all just talking about a movie here.
But there's just some things in the movie that don't make sense. So we are here to explain all of your plot holes and unanswered questions that you guys have about this film. So first, let's start with the big one. Jean Grey. Brand New Day introduced the first official X-Men into the MCU, and we've already talked about how this movie sets the foundation for the mutant saga in phases 7 through 9. However, because Jean is introduced as a villain, displaying powers we haven't seen before, you guys had a lot of questions. So that guy on our YouTube community page says, Jean Grey uses her telepathy and mental possession on everyday New Yorkers, such as driving an elderly man into oncoming traffic and throwing MJ off a roof to force Spider-Man to comply. And yet, Spider-Man, who holds people accountable for endangering innocent lives, which is why he spent half the movie fighting Frank Castle over lethal vigilantism, gives her a pass at the end. Yeah guys, look, I'll admit, that bothered me. When the old guy got hit by a car, it was basically a Meet Joe Black moment. And this is, I think, the only person we actually saw her potentially kill. But we know he didn't die because we see him in the end credits.
There's a couple things I want to say about this. For one, I don't know where people are getting the idea that they're the same guy. The most resemblance we see is them having a white beard, but the beard isn't even the same. The style is clearly different. You can pause and compare real quick. But that's ultimately inconsequential because even if the guy got lucky and happened to survive, then I don't see how this would affect Peter's judgment. Attempted murder is not morally different from murder. So I find it bizarre when people go show me the bodies when we're talking about the implications of what a villain does. If I shoot someone and I happen to miss or the bullet doesn't kill them, that doesn't mean someone isn't a killer at heart. And what's more important is that the lesson behind the origin of Spider-Man is that if you see something, you should do something. Dennis Carradine didn't kill anyone. Yet. But he was still a dangerous criminal. It's treated as a bad thing that Peter let him off the hook. Just because the guy didn't kill anyone yet doesn't mean he shouldn't be turned in. Hell, even if he was unsuccessful in killing Uncle Ben, and according to a certain retcon that's the case, the technicality behind if the guy died, if he didn't, is ultimately inconsequential to Peter's core beliefs.
Peter even says to Jean in the movie, "You're not a murderer." And if this guy had died, then I think Peter and Frank definitely would have arrested her for murder.
Well, Frank would have killed Jean. Frank's ideology is based on a disbelief and denial of redemption.
And then a month, a week, a day later, they're back on the streets doing the same goddamn thing!
But as for Peter, I don't see how the guy luckily surviving would change his decision. I mean, as far as Peter is aware, the Vulture didn't kill anyone, nobody died on the ferry, and there's no confirmed killing from his weapons. But Peter was still going to turn him in. Mysterio didn't technically have confirmed kills either. We technically didn't see any bodies in the movie. That doesn't mean he's not a killer because he meant to kill people, just as Jean tried to many times in the movie.
But also, hey, it's New York, baby. People get hit by cars all the time, no big deal. I mean, in this movie, Jean never wants to kill anyone throughout the film. She doesn't get murderous until she realizes that her sister is dead.
I'm not sure where that's coming from when she literally blew up cars during the tank chase. She's shooting guns constantly, and if the bullets don't hit Spider-Man, the people in the background are definitely at risk of being hit. She also rigged a bomb to explode, which could have killed people, and she very deliberately sent MJ off the roof, which almost killed her. She also forces the guards to shoot each other, so she's very much willing to kill without a second thought.
So maybe we can assume that she somehow kept this guy alive, or at the very least hopped into somebody else to catch him.
Why would we assume that when she never made any attempts to keep anyone else alive besides Peter at the end, and she's hopping into random people and focused on her escape? I don't think she can do that and focus on saving someone. Also, the car still hit the guy, so catching him isn't going to change that. He's still going to suffer from the hit.
But there's also the poor helicopter pilot that must have fallen to his death after Peter's webbing dissolved.
Well, to be fair, I assume Peter would have drawn attention to his location. I don't think there's any reason to assume he let the guy die.
Galactic Leopard says, Peter gets excited during Lego scene when MJ says she doesn't remember anything while being possessed. Now at that point, he had already encountered like 5 other people who made comments like, "Oh, I don't know what I was doing," or "How'd I get up here?" Now look, that is true, but that doesn't mean that the possessed people couldn't remember anything. Metzger specifically tells Peter that when he was possessed, he was thinking of his colleague Sarah. So he could reason that even though possessed people aren't aware of their actions, Peter thinks that they are aware of their thoughts.
But the entire point of mind control is that you lose your free will, including your ability to think and act on your own volition. Thinking about something is still a conscious decision, and Peter specifically said that Metzger remembered thinking about someone named Sarah. So if they don't remember anything they did while under mind control, then how were they having conscious thoughts during it? It's not like the Avengers or the Winter Soldier, where they remembered their actions despite not being in control. So it makes sense why they'd remember their own thoughts. Everyone in Brand New Day questioned how they got there or what happened. The natural assumption would be that they weren't conscious whatsoever, especially since they would have reported their experiences to law enforcement. They're gonna explain every detail of their experience because they'd want to prove their innocence, and law enforcement would question them to uncover the truth. And Spider-Man would want to know through DeWolf or the news reporting about these victims. The pattern would tell him that they weren't conscious during these encounters, so of course they're not going to remember anything. So why is MJ communicating the same thing, the tipping point for him? It doesn't add up.
Calabro says, why didn't Jean mind jump into the director of damage control in the beginning and save herself a lot of trouble? Simple, she couldn't get close enough. In the Department of Damage Control, Metzger is holed up in a vault that is more than 33 feet away from the entrance.
But the commenter isn't questioning that scene, they're asking about the very beginning of the movie. What was stopping Jean from using her mind-hopping abilities to hop into damage control employees in the building until she arrived at Metzger? He doesn't stay in the vault 24/7, he walks around the building and he'll eventually leave to go home. There's no way Jean could have failed numerous times to simply mind-hop into his head and learn everything. If she's a threat that they can't control or even see, then there's no reason for anyone to catch on to what she's doing. Nobody should know there is a threat until she has all of the information she needs and it's too late.
Metzger would know the outer range of Jean's powers because of his experiments on Sarah.
Well, then why didn't he take Jean as well?
Okay, but when she got into Metzger's brain, how come she didn't see that his sister died?
Simple, buddy. She never got into Metzger's brain. She entered the vault with Frank. So that means she has to keep mind controlling Frank because she can only mind control one person at a time at this point in the film. So that meant that she was not able to leap into Metzger. Had she left Frank's mind, then Frank would have captured her.
Well, that raises another issue in the scene. Why not have Frank shoot himself, then jump into Metzger's mind? Instead, she tries asking him about her sister through an interrogation when Metzger could easily stall her lie. Just jump into his mind once you've got him.
Robert Excel on Twitter says, why did Damage Control kidnap Sarah but not Jean? Look, they may not have even known that Jean had powers.
Why? How would they realize that Sarah had powers but not find out Jean did? They had files on Jean. She was classified as a telepath. Plus, they had a mother who rejected them, and she'd have no reason not to cooperate if Damage Control questioned her.
Even if they did, they must have known that Sarah was more powerful, so they went after her.
And what were they expecting Jean to do about her sister being captured? To do nothing? What if Jean attacked their organization in retaliation? She's a threat that they can't control or see. They'd want to detain her to prevent this.
Maybe they reasoned that it would be too difficult to take two telepaths at once.
Why? They can knock both of them out and bring them to their base. You could separate the two as well. And again, Jean is going to target them if they do nothing about her, which they should know because their power is why they're interested in them in the first place.
But given how they operate, I think they didn't realize that she had abilities. We see that Sarah is pretty brazen with her gift, using it in broad daylight. And Jean, much like in the comics, was probably more reserved with her abilities.
But they'd have to know who Sarah was ahead of time to even plan this. I don't think the movie is saying they found out about her powers because of what happened at the park. Nobody could see that she's controlling people unless they specifically decided to monitor these specific people at the park, which would require them to know who they are ahead of time to even have such an interest in the first place. And again, they had files on Jean's abilities, so they were able to find out. That's how Peter found out too.
And Meowie wants to know, why does the Punisher bring the wounded Peter to the hospital as if nothing were amiss? Isn't he a wanted criminal? Great question, we got this a lot. So in the TV shows, the Punisher's legal status is in a weird place. The cops aren't actively pursuing him like they do in Daredevil Season 2.
Initially no, because they thought Frank Castle was dead, but when they found out he was alive in Season 1, everyone was looking for him. In Season 2, Frank had to sneak out of the hospital because of the fact people were after him. And even when Frank tried to disguise himself, he was still caught by Mahoney. So it's even less believable that he can just chill at the hospital. He has a well-known reputation as a serial killer. He's even in the news in One Last Kill after he killed the Nucci crime family. He's very much a wanted man.
And in his own show, he actually works alongside an FBI agent named Madani.
Yeah, but she can't bail him out of everything. As long as Frank continues to operate as the Punisher, he remains a target in the eyes of the law.
But the real reason is likely because of a deleted scene. Rosario Dawson's character from the Netflix shows, Claire Temple, is also known as the Night Nurse. When heroes get injured, they come to her for help so they can avoid hospitals and protect their secret identities. Rosario Joe Dawson did shoot a scene for this movie that ended up being deleted, so it's likely that Frank brought Spider-Man to this specific hospital just because Claire could protect his identity, like she has done for Matt Murdock and many others in the past.
Then I suppose it'd help if the scene was in the movie. There's nothing that naturally guides us to that interpretation, so I don't think that works as an answer.
Arroyo 2099 says, how come the Punisher wasn't arrested if he stayed by Peter's side in the hospital for days? Wouldn't the cops arrest an armed, murdering vigilante? Okay, look, think about the political landscape in New York right now. This is right after Wilson Fisk had a special vigilante task force to enforce martial law on the city, and that task force wore the symbol of the Punisher. Following the takedown of Fisk, New York is much more pro-vigilante, even giving Spider-Man the key to the city. I'm betting that the new mayor is embracing vigilantes in order to distance herself from the policies of Wilson Fisk. And I think there's probably still a lot of pro-Punisher sentiment on the force.
The Punisher was considered a criminal even before the anti-vigilante task force, and being in support of Daredevil doesn't mean people would support the Punisher. Daredevil doesn't kill and actively fights for justice. The Punisher is more reckless, he kills people, and he told the public that he likes doing it, which horrified everyone. I don't think there'd be a lot of Punisher fans out there, and Frank has consistently been hunted down by the police, so I doubt there'd be plenty of pro-Punisher sentiment. That never made sense in Born Again anyway, but even then, they still arrested Frank.
Followed up with, how is the Punisher a very wanted man just walking around New York City? Okay, look, I get it. The Punisher kills people. A lot of people, but really think about this. If you were a cop and you saw the Punisher walking down the street, what would you do? The vast majority of people, I think, given the Punisher's reputation, would look the other way so they don't get hurt.
This is a strange defense to me because the cops regularly hunted down supervillains or superheroes as well. Even in Born Again, which he's about to bring up, we saw this. Granted, I think questioning how the Punisher can walk around the city is pretty vague and shallow. I assume the Punisher generally has strategies and safeguards to evade police attention. It's just that one scene in the hospital where he didn't, which should have gotten him caught easily.
Not to mention all the cops that actually agree with him. Better men than you have tried to take down the Punisher and ended up in the hospital.
Daredevil is one guy. The cops have strength in numbers, and Daredevil can be overpowered by a squad of officers.
Why was the word friend something that triggered or juggled the Big Hulk's memory? Why just the word friend? What has Hulk remembered about the word friend that made him stop attacking and let go? Look, you think you're overthinking it. This is something that happens in the comics. The Hulk is fundamentally a lonely guy and isolated from others. So when he does make a connection with someone, as he does with Natasha, it breaks through the rage and calms him down.
Yeah, but there wasn't a connection between Peter and Hulk, so it makes it weird when Peter says, "It's Peter," as a way of getting Hulk to realize they're friends when they don't know each other. Black Widow had a very specific technique to get the Hulk to calm down, one which failed in Ragnarok. Now, why would Black Widow need to come up with a specific technique that you have to properly master if you can just call him a friend and he stops immediately, even if you don't really know him?
How is Peter paying for his apartment in tech? That's a great question. I mean, we see in Homecoming that Peter is a dumpster diver.
You're a dumpster diver.
Yeah, I was. Anyway, look,
But there's no way he found a 3D printer just laying around. Some people have theorized that Tony Stark could have left him money, but remember, Peter's identity was fully erased, so his bank accounts would be gone too. Hell, on paper, he doesn't even exist. But the answer is actually pretty simple. In the comics, Peter pays his rent by taking pictures of Spider-Man for the Daily Bugle. Now, right now, I don't think any major metropolitan newspapers could support anybody's lifestyle, but remember, in the very first scene where we met Peter, Tony Stark plays a YouTube video of Spider-Man saving someone. So I think that Peter probably films himself and then monetizes a YouTube channel.
None of that is in the movie though. Peter never records himself as Spider-Man, nor is he shown to run a YouTube channel. You'd think they'd show something like this during the montage where we're meant to learn about Peter's life. It's not a strict impossibility, but I think it's lazy that the movie didn't even try to address this.
What happened to his mutation? That just stopped? No, it levels out. Like at the end of the movie, he is stronger and has organic webbing, but the mutation no longer overwhelms him because he has mentally learned to balance his life.
I get that's what they're going for, but that's not really enough. The movie tells you that prolonged isolation or emotional trauma is what causes the mutation to go out of control. We're also shown that simply losing the fight with Scorpion is what broke Peter's ability to control his mutation. So stressful situations count as emotional trauma. Peter's never going to be immune to emotional trauma. He's never going to be immune to losing fights or getting close to losing fights, especially when the stakes are high. The same loss of control can occur for either of those reasons, or both at the same time. So him just mastering control control of it after spending a chunk of the movie relying on the inhibitor so he doesn't have to control it is just rushed.
Yunmaid says no mention of Kingpin and his destruction, and Spider-Man being absent during that time when he was allegedly only focused on being Spider-Man between those years. Look, there is a Mayor Fisk poster here in the alley, and I am sure that off-screen Fisk formed a special task force to arrest Spider-Man just like he does in the comics.
He didn't have another task force, he just had the Anti-Vigilante Task Force. You could maybe argue that Damage Control was sent to hunt him down, but that leads into additional questions and makes Peter's trust in Damage Control far less believable. If we're to believe that Damage Control made the resources they've collected into weapons, and they're working under Fisk, why wasn't this shared with the Anti-Vigilante Task Force? Daredevil is dead if someone hits him with Shocker's gauntlet. Also, if he had a task force dedicated to Spider-Man, wouldn't he use that task force to hunt down Bullseye, the guy who's trying to kill him throughout Daredevil Born Again? It also doesn't address why Spider-Man didn't help Daredevil during that time. Daredevil's team was very limited, and Spider-Man would have full interest in teaming up with him to stop Fisk, but that's a whole can of worms, and I don't want to repeat every detail of what I said in my Daredevil Born Again Season 2 video.
Jeffrey Lane says, how is the hand working for Damage Control? Also, there definitely were cameras in the prison scene so people know he's Spider-Man. Well, Damage Control stole Sarah's powers to mind control people, like the hand.
Wait, when was that? I thought the point of experimenting on Jean was that they didn't harness her powers yet. They needed to experiment on Jean to replicate her abilities. It's never stated that they did that to control the hand, and even then, I don't think that explanation would roll well with the law or the public. Why would they legally be allowed to have the hand working for them? They're all dangerous ninjas part of a death cult that resurrects themselves to prolong their organization. They would not be trusted to escape sentencing to fight for Damage Control.
All the Avengers are literally 10 minutes away from all the destruction in the movie. They were busy with the crisis in space.
Clearly not if Yelena is just chilling in the banya. She wasn't doing anything important, and the implication is that they're not getting involved because it's beneath them. Small potato stuff. That in itself is just silly. It's like if Ultron somehow returned, and they were like, nah, that's small potato stuff, even though Jean has the power to unleash anyone, like the Hulk. The explanation in the movie just doesn't work. But yeah, that's all I've got to say regarding these defenses in the video. I think the guy in the video is definitely giving his all to be fair to the criticism, while sharing his own perspective, but I think many of these responses simply weren't convincing enough to me. On the flip side, I've seen more extreme people act as apologists for Jean Grey by relying on some of the worst and most distasteful arguments that I've ever seen to defend her character. It all spawned from this tweet, which is absolutely correct because we saw what Jean did to Peter and MJ, and Peter had no intentions of turning her in for that. Now to be clear, not everyone who likes or defends this movie has done this, but quite a bit of people have resorted to being apologists for Jean's behavior. Explain how her sexually assaulting Peter and MJ was at all important to her plans. I think we need a new term here. Yes, I agree that kissing someone unconsensually is bad, but y'all are making it sound like she did something worse than a kiss. It's a kiss through mind control. MJ was in no position to consent, and Peter was manipulated into the kiss. Forcing people into kissing without consent counts as sexual assaults. Do not die on this hill. Who's the sex offender in question? They mean it for Jean, due to kissing Peter with MJ's body. This is so dumb, it's not that deep. Oh, so it's dumb to say that someone is a sex offender for forcing people to kiss? Great to know. Glad we're getting some really great defenses for Jean's character. Why the hell do people count the MJ kiss as Jean kissing him? She didn't kiss him, she made MJ kiss him. She literally used her as a puppet, bruh. Oh, that's a glowing distinction. Hey, it wasn't Jean's body that was kissing someone without their consent. She just took over someone else's body and forced them into a kiss without consent. Well, I guess she's innocent of the charge now. Spider-Man gives everyone second chances. That's his character. Okay, so this isn't being an apologist for her behavior, but this is still a bad defense. Giving someone a second chance doesn't mean refusing to hold them accountable. He gives them a second chance by sparing their life, not by letting them roam the streets to possibly repeat their same behavior. Jean still did it and never even apologized for it, and I refuse to believe that one conversation in Peter's mind magically fixes all of her issues. She needs to be given professional help, which Peter never encourages her to do. All Peter explained is that she doesn't have to be alone, not even the morality behind violating bodily autonomy, so it's not even reasonable for Peter to believe that she fully changed. She still has issues to work out. She's under 18, since Peter outright says she's just a kid in the movie. Oh, well, I guess that changes everything then. I guess we can't recount what she did because she's just a kid. Peter and MJ were the victims victims, a victim of SA reserves the right to deal with their assaulters however they feel is right, and they both thought it would be best to save Jean from literal torture and death. So save us your bullshit moral high ground. That's an interesting point. Now, did MJ ever have a say for what happens to Jean after she gets freed from damage control? No, Peter didn't even ask her when it was her body that was being taken over. They never discussed sending her elsewhere like to the raft. That never comes up in conversation. And while we're on this, what about the other people that Jean killed or almost killed? Did they get a say in any of this? Did the guy she hit with a car who apparently survived in the end credits have a say in this? I guess not. Also, damage control wouldn't be able to hold Jean after they got exposed for their experimentation by Yelena. Of course they're not sending her back there. That's under investigation for serious crimes. They'd send her elsewhere like the raft. Oh, y'all are not ready for how morally gray the X-Men are, starting with freaking Charles Xavier. I can't believe I have to say this. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Jean Grey is not morally gray. She's very blatantly evil. There's nothing morally gray about violating consent to force people to kiss. There's nothing morally gray about that. Now, if you want a really great video on the matter, go watch this video that breaks down how nonsense this take is in a very entertaining manner. In the comics, he kisses underage girls. Grow up a little.
What? What are you talking about?
That is not a defense. Neither of these are acceptable either. Are you serious?
Cause hot damn, you wanna know what's a scam? Your fucking education. Nigga, that's what the scam is.
You're sick. Are you telling me that, to you, a person dying, whether by accident or not, since an accident is what fired the gun, is worse than that alleged sexual abuse that never happened? Oh my god. MJ is alive and remembers absolutely nothing about it. Ah yes, remembering nothing about the experience somehow justifies violating her consent.
No! It's just dumb.
I guess you can do anything to anyone, as long as they're not conscious to experience it, according to this higher level thinker. Like, this is pure insanity. Don't die on this hill. And yes, the reason this is different from what Sandman did to Uncle Ben is because Sandman didn't mean to kill him, which is far different from what Jean did. Did she accidentally mind control MJ to do what she did? Like, come on, be serious. So, that's enough tweets for now, but I think this illustrates the general problem. Resorting to being an apologist for Jean Grey's behavior just to defend a Spider-Man movie is just goofy. You can argue whether it's in character for Peter to let her go, that's a different debate, but do not downplay what Jean did just to argue that. I've also seen some really pathetic claims like this, which have absolutely no basis behind it. Like, I don't even think I have to explain how stupid and false this is, but fans of Brand New Day ran with this regardless, for basically no reason. Liking a movie is not being an apologist for a character's choices. However, defending a character's choices when the moral implications are being addressed is being an apologist for their choices, which people have evidently done. It's really stupid. But moving on from that, I've already received a lot of comments on my Spider-Man Brand New Day review. It's pretty difficult to do them justice in text because that would take a long while, and I recommend watching my review first before watching this part of the response because I don't want to repeat myself too much. It's far quicker to address them in a video, because while I can't directly get to everyone, at least they get a fair shake in being addressed here, though I'm gonna try to avoid comments like this. Just enjoy something for once. Alright, look, maybe you mean well by this, but I've enjoyed numerous things on my channel. I've positively reviewed or defended numerous stories on my channel. Just because I didn't like the new Spider-Man movie doesn't mean I'm incapable of enjoying anything. That's a pretty bizarre takeaway from one negative review. At some point, you're gonna find a movie that you don't think highly of and that really isn't a problem to talk about. 90% on Rotten Tomatoes and has made over $1 billion. SK is turning into Mauler. So this is another non-defense I want to address. Having a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes has nothing to do with the craft of the movie, nor does how much money the movie makes. If box office mattered so much, then The Amazing Spider-Man 2 would be a much better movie than Into the Spider-Verse. I certainly hope you don't think that's a good argument. And you can be critical of Mauler's content all you want. I've never personally witnessed him make an argument as childish as how much money the movie made, or what score it got on Rotten Tomatoes. This isn't helpful feedback for anyone to improve their criticisms. That's just telling them to follow the crowd without question. Nitpick, the video. Okay, last non-defense I want to address. Calling everything a nitpick isn't good feedback either. My main focus was on the characterization, the messaging, the plot, you know, things that kind of matter when crafting a story. I'll admit that some of what I said were nitpicks, in fact I've admitted to such in the video, but major issues like contradicting character arcs, fundamental traits from previous content, or a plot that doesn't follow basic cause and effect are things that impact how a story plays out, and how the characters are portrayed. How is any of that nitpicking. If a story stops being believable based on what we know about the world and the characters, it starts to feel manufactured and contrived. And if it takes someone out of the film, there's not a problem with voicing this. Hang on, is this not a complete contradiction to what you said earlier about Peter? Swinging MJ around while his mutation is active is dangerous. Pretty sure that it was using his web shooters. Okay, so we finally have legitimate points to address. Now this part of the movie was when Peter was swinging with MJ to bring her to Frank's hideout. By that point, his inhibitor wasn't fixed. MJ had to help him fix it. So that scene when I played that over my audio was simply a visual example of Peter having to control his mutation with organic webs. I think this just implies that Ned knows Peter is Spider-Man since MJ exposed his name earlier. Okay, so this is referring to the end of the movie. Now the reason I'm saying that the ending implies that MJ and Ned's memories are returning is for a couple of reasons. For one, MJ is shown at Midtown High at Peter's specific spot, and holding the necklace he gave her while she's presumably thinking about Peter. Now that doesn't seem like a coincidence, and the trigger that gets Ned to think of Peter as if he realized something was them doing their old handshake, which was only associated with Peter. He never did the handshake with Spider-Man specifically, or learn it from him. With great power comes great responsibility. To me, that doesn't scream every single crime is Spider-Man's responsibility. Leaving the cops to handle one bank robbery while Peter heals is okay. So the point in the video isn't that Peter needs to seek out every crime out there. The idea behind great power comes great responsibility and his origin story is that if you see something happen and you're in a unique position to stop it, then you should do something about it. It's a critique of the mindset of making it somebody else's problem. Uncle Ben died because Peter looked the other way for a robber and decided to leave it to the cops. The ending of Brand New Day is Peter looking the other way for a robbery and leaving it to the cops. You see the problem, right? I don't think he was mind controlled in the Avengers. He just got pissed. Bruce was mad at S.H.I.E.L.D. for manipulating him, so when the Hulk emerged, it was targeted at them. Hulk didn't have any anger towards Loki the same way as S.H.I.E.L.D. The reason Bruce was pushed was because of the scepter. It's still a form of mind control because it manipulated his emotions and caused him to grab the scepter without realizing it. He was completely shocked by this, and Black Widow explicitly stated that Loki is manipulating the Hulk. What's further telling is that when Hulk returns in the final battle, he doesn't attack anyone, like he did earlier. In fact, he works with them to save the day. Yeah, Peter lets Frank go, but who let Frank go free? Daredevil. So I don't see how this makes the movie bad, and I'm somewhat glad they didn't go with the comics where Spider-Man and the Punisher aren't friends. But yeah, Peter should not be friends with the killer, but the dynamic with these characters is very good, and also Spider-Man always makes quips. Hell, Peter was even making cop jokes in Spider-Man 3, while literally a vehicle was driving dangerously. And Peter didn't come here to complain about her having Peter take his suit off, he just came here to know about what happened to damage control, and Peter Parker prefers to work alone. Daredevil didn't have the opportunity to turn in Frank. He's not like Spider-Man, who is far more powerful than Frank. Daredevil is just a man with heightened senses, and there was nowhere to turn him in during Daredevil Born Again. The task force would have just insta-killed him. He only worked with him out of necessity, and the Punisher escaped them on his own, without Daredevil knowing where he was. And even if Daredevil was at fault, that doesn't absolve Spider-Man for not turning him in. Spider-Man shouldn't be stopping his mission to joke around when lives are at stake. I don't know where people are getting the idea that Peter wouldn't take things seriously when time is of the essence. The first issue of The Amazing Spider-Man doesn't even support that. He's not making stretch jokes or anything. If he quips, he does so while detaining the threat. Peter's reasoning for showing up is all the more reason for him to criticize Yelena for this, or at least dislike her. Pressuring someone to undress themselves isn't okay, and we should at least see Peter have a problem with this, but he doesn't. And saying Peter prefers to work alone isn't a compelling response because he calls up Yelena when it would benefit the mission when he realizes Metzger lied to him. Using this clip to justify the idea that Tony spares people once the threat is over is hilarious. What do you think the people are going to give the terrorist? A pat on the back and a plane ticket home? Or they might lock him up in a cell. The point of Iron Man leaving the terrorist for the people is for them to decide how he faces justice. He's not going to make himself judge, jury, and executioner. He only kills in defense of himself or others. And once the threat is detained, he has no real reason to kill. He lets the people decide how this person faces justice. That's not being an executioner like the Punisher. That's him giving the people a choice.
And the war criminal Loki who should be answering for his crime. Oh, I think he will be.
What the fuck is your point here? How is this perverted at all? Yelena clearly isn't bothered by Peter's body and could not care less. And second, why would Peter call Yelena out when he's literally trying to get her to help him? And to say Tom Spider-Man lacks a backbone then glaze Toby is hilarious, considering he can't even confront Jameson when he's blatantly being taken advantage of and abused. Get a grip. Okay, I don't know why I have to explain this again, but apparently I have to. Pressuring someone to undress themselves when they don't want to is perverted. Why do I have to explain this? No means no. If you really think there's no issue with what she did, then go ahead and do this to someone else and see how that turns out for you. Actually, don't do that. I think you and I both know the problem here. Peter would call out Yelena because instead of talking about what matters, she's trying to push him to undress himself. Just tell her that's wildly inappropriate and he just came here to discuss something important because people are in danger. That's simple. And Peter does confront Jameson when he lies about Spider-Man. Did you watch the movie?
Spider-Man wasn't attacking the city. He was trying to save it. That's slander.
It is not. Slander is spoken. In print, it's libel.
You don't trust anybody. That's your problem.
He's literally trying to change Punisher's ideologies without using violence himself. Your previous point was that Spider-Man doesn't seem to care about Punisher killing people, but when Peter tries to convince the Punisher not to kill people, suddenly he's wasting time. And when he does realize talking isn't working, he knocks Punisher out of the vehicle immediately. Seems like you're just hating for the sake of hating. He should have taken Punisher out of the vehicle immediately because there's a dangerous tank endangering the streets and he knows that Punisher is also risking lives here. Peter clearly does use violence when needed, but he doesn't kill. I'm not advocating for him to kill Frank. At most, I advocated for him to turn him in. Being a tech genius doesn't mean you can redesign tech you spend literal years developing in the matter of hours. It's not simply a matter of copy and paste because he'd have to redesign the entire shape and technological aspects of the web shooters. Also, where the hell would he put it? On his nipples? Be for real, bro. I literally showed a clip of Peter shooting webs out of the top of his wrists to visualize where he could have placed them. And don't act like this is some tall order, when in the same movie, he poofs out DNA inhibitors in a day. I'm not taking that defense seriously when that's in the movie. Also, Punisher is literally one of the best options for protecting MJ. Not only is he isolated from society, he's living in an abandoned ship away from society, which makes it very hard for Jean to find them. Also, there are clearly no traps inside his living area, so what is there to be concerned about?
What? What are you talking about?
Saying there are clearly no traps in Punisher's hideout just shot your defense in the face, because we see in the movie that he does have traps, which Peter should know about because Frank gave him this location and Frank regularly tells people what kind of traps he sets, as I showed in the video. The point of the plotline is that his mutation is slowly developing because he feels distant from his Peter persona, which is why it goes out of control when he's emotionally unstable early in the movie. He masters this by accepting that he can be both Peter Parker and Spider-Man, which was his overall arc. They mention in the movie that emotional trauma also provokes his mutation. Him simply losing a fight to Scorpion was enough to push him to lose control, even when he kept it relatively controlled in spite of his isolation. So what happens if Kraven gives him too hard of a time? Is he gonna lose control and kill him? What happens if a villain kills someone he loves? Will his mutation force him to kill the villain instead of abiding by what he learned in No Way Home? He spent a good chunk of the movie using the inhibitor to suppress it so he doesn't struggle to control it. But suddenly it's not an issue when he's losing another fight. It's rushed. My god, this damage control complaint is so fucking stupid. Damage control only interacted with him because he was being accused of murder in the last movie. Why would Peter ever find that shady? Them shooting at him would be completely reasonable considering the scenario of a hotel exploding and Spidey not being respected. Also, he does not fully trust them. Quite obviously. The only reason he goes to talk to them is because to find out what VMAX is. And God forbid Spider-Man helps a government organization. It's not like he isn't known for helping the police, the fire department, and medics or anything. They're being attacked, of course. Spider-Man would want to stop it. He also doesn't tell Metzger why he's looking for VMAX, which shows he doesn't fully trust him but clears him, which is correct. Metzger doesn't know what VMAX is. Later in the film, when Jean says Sarah, he literally asks Metzger, feeling he might know what it means, and after he got the BS answer, he still said he would like to talk to Jean personally, which means he doesn't fully trust them, but he also has no reason to be fuck damage control when they are the organization that has turned in villains for the last 4 years. You are taking your outside knowledge of movies and writing as a viewer and applying it to characters in a story, literally ignoring the writing device of dramatic irony. God, this was stupid. Okay, so the first part can be shut down with one clip.
I don't believe any of the charges against you are gonna stick. Peter, you may have dodged your legal troubles, but things will get much worse.
You can't shoot at someone because of a murder charge that didn't hold up in court. It's not completely reasonable to shoot first and ask questions later. That's inherently reckless, and that's something law enforcement would be rightfully criticized for. Also, he does fully trust them. There's a reason I showed a clip of him saying he doesn't think Metzger knows any more than they do. It's displaying that he actually does trust them. I don't know why you didn't address that clip. And if he didn't fully trust them, then why did it take him confirming Metzger lied to him to fact check his claim about Sarah? Why not ask Yelena to verify the validity of his claim about Sarah instead of taking him at his word? Oh right, it's because he trusted damage control. Way more than he should have. Regarding your criticism about how Spider-Man has trouble with the hand, I'm pretty sure it was stated they were using special weapons that were specifically designed to injure/restrain/badly affect Spider-Man. Okay, but you know what else was designed to injure and kill? An army of killer drones, which Spider-Man Spider-Man still beat. Even when he lost his webs, he still beat the drones. The drones are more dangerous than the Hand in every way. They require Spider-Man to dodge more and rely on his spider sense. The Hand has swords and guns that counter his webs. They should still be easy compared to what Spider-Man has fought before. And again, Daredevil beat these people up when they had swords and guns, which are also designed to hurt or kill people. He still took them on. Savage Hulk was unleashed because Bruce suppressed the beast for far too long, and Jean broke something in his head when controlling Smart Hulk. Jean never meant to unleash the Hulk on the city, and people gotta stop claiming she did. The Hulk being unleashed is partly Bruce's fault for suppressing the monster, and partly Jean's fault for her recklessness. Besides that, your point is completely valid and Jean's actions throughout the movie are not justified at all. So I disagree that Bruce is at fault here. He integrated the Hulk and Banner identities to find the best of both worlds.
This is where I spent the blip fixing myself and integrating the Hulk Banner identity.
Jean is fully at fault for this, and when she found out about Savage Hulk, this is what she had to say.
Good luck with that, Peter.
She clearly does not care and will even gloat about it. They weren't hopping into people's minds for fun. Sarah was teaching Jean how to do it so they can get a better understanding of their powers and learn how to use them better. I agree it wasn't right for them to do that, but it wasn't for shits and giggles like you're framing it. So she starts the scene asking who do you want to be, and they're playing around with people's bodies and doing so, like having someone waving. That is literally doing it for fun. It honestly isn't a power that's even ethical to use in the first place, unless you're using it to fight crime or something, akin to the X-Men using their powers to protect people. But that's clearly not their motivation, that's never established in the scene. I don't agree with this take. Spider-Man constantly jokes even when the situation is serious. Plus, he was clearly trying to distract the guards and keep them from doing anything. It makes sense to me and is honestly a really funny scene. So this is in reference to the stretching joke. There's a difference between joking while fighting versus stopping the mission for a stand-up routine. There's a huge distinction there, and I have no idea where you're getting the idea that Spider-Man is just like this. His first Amazing Spider-Man issue is him rushing to the scene and believing there's no time to mess around, and making a dumb stretch joke is not going to prevent them from shooting at him for trespassing. They could actually shoot him while he's doing that, which isn't out of character for them to do either. So yeah, that's a lot of comments for now. I feel I've covered a decent chunk of them to at least shed some light on the pushback. I've gotten a lot of comments, so it's hard to get to them all, but I do want to thank everyone for supporting the video, alongside those who respectfully pushed back on the video. Hopefully, I was at least able to address some common responses, so even if I missed some of your comments, I was still able to address the sentiment behind them. Anyway, that's all I have for now. Thanks for watching. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all later. Goodbye.